Hello, everybody. So today we are moving away from business organizations, looking at individual businesses, and we're going to start looking at how these businesses start to interact with one another with what we call market structures. All right, so today I just want to look at some of the characteristics of these market structures, and then we'll start looking at individual ones in particular. All right, so first thing that I want to address is the fact that markets are just a place where individuals or businesses compete with one another. It's where buyers and sellers can meet and trade most effectively. All right, and so generally the government tries to keep their hands out of the market because the more government interaction we have in the market, generally the less efficient it is. All right, and so ideally in this market we have what's called a perfect competition, where we've got a lot of sellers all selling identical goods. And that way, the prices are as low as they can be. All right, and so just to kind of take a look at the two different market structures. All right, first off, let's say that you're driving down the street and you see that one gas station is 20% more expensive than all the other gas stations. Well, chances are you're just going to keep driving past it, right? Because there's a dozen different gas stations you can go to in town. And so for you, it's just going to be a price, right? All right, but if on the other hand, let's say Georgia Power were to raise their prices by 20%, chances are our demand for it wouldn't drastically change. Now, the key difference here between these two is the level of competition that you would see in them, right? So for the first one, you've got a ton of competition. You've got a lot of sellers of the exact same good. On the bottom one, you have absolutely no competition. You've got one seller of that product. And that would be the biggest difference of the elastic or inelasticness of the demand for it. All right, and so just to kind of look at some characteristics, we're going to use these to identify our market structures tomorrow, but there's a couple things we need to look at first. All right, first off would be the level of competition. All right, in markets where there's not a lot of competition, all right, you're going to see low quality and you're going to see high prices. All right, a good example of this is to think about the gas station on Jekyll. They've got no competition, and so because of that, their prices are a good bit higher than other companies. All right, same thing with that Daraprim drug. All right, because they're the only drug that can help with HIV, they can really set the prices wherever they want. So ideally, in our market economy, we want a good amount of competition because that'll help regulate the market. Like with restaurants, right, if you were looking at what to get for dinner, you've got 100 different choices in Brunswick. And so because of that, prices generally need to stay pretty low. Quality generally needs to stay pretty high. Otherwise, you're just going to go on to the next restaurant. Oops, I'm sorry. All right, so the number of buyers and sellers matters in a market economy. And so specifically with the sellers, all right, the fewer sellers they are, and this is what we were looking at with competition, the fewer sellers there are, the higher the prices are going to be. The more sellers there are, the lower the prices are going to be. And this goes back to what we were talking about with supply and demand, right? The demand would be the buyers, the supply would be the sellers, and so the number of buyers and sellers will have a big impact on prices. All right, so another thing I want to look at is identical versus differentiated goods. All right, identical goods are also what we call commodities, the root word there being common. All right, so with this, you can think about gas, right? So if you were to look at the gas in my gas tank, chances are you wouldn't be able to tell me which gas station I got it from. Because for all intents and purposes, gas is an identical good, right? You don't really differentiate one type of gas from another. Same thing with milk. You could pour, 3 glasses of milk in front of me, from 3 different companies, and chances are I wouldn't be able to identify which milk came from which brand. And so because of that, I'm not really willing to spend more money at one gas station over another gas station if the gas is an identical good. However, if the product is differentiated, then I would be willing to spend a different amount of money, right? So if you think about burgers in town, you've got Willys, you've got Five Guys, you've got McDonald's, you've got Burger King, you've got Wendy's. All of them charge different prices for their goods. Like, they're similar, they're all burgers, but they are differentiated from one another. And this could be on a lot of different things. It could be on the ingredients. It could be on the customer service. Like if you look at Chick-fil-A, people are willing to spend a little bit more money there because the customer service is so good. Whereas vice versa with McDonald's. I feel like whenever I go there, I don't really get the best customer service, and so I'm not willing to spend as much money. So they would be differentiated products. All right. having informed buyers and sellers is another important part of our market, right? And with this, you can think about car shopping or home shopping. The more information you have, the better off you're going to be in this transaction. And so watching my wife buy a new car is like an episode of Shark Tank, right? So whenever she bought her most recent vehicle last October, right, she was in contact with probably 20 different car dealerships. She knew she wanted a CRV, she knew the general price that she wanted, she knew the features that she wanted, and then she literally pit all of these car dealerships against one another. All right? So when she did that, there was asymmetrical information, right? Symmetry means that things are balanced. So if things are asymmetrical, then that means that they're not balanced. So she had the information in that case. The other side of the coin would be the fact that my grandmother, who's getting close to 100 years old now, has an iPhone 10, and she barely knows how to text. But at some point, some salesman convinced her that if she got this iPhone, she would get all these pictures of her grandkids, and she could FaceTime with her grandkids every day. And she doesn't really need all of these things because she doesn't know how to use the technology. All right, and so information in a market economy is important. The more information you have, the better off you're going to be. And that's why cigarette companies fought really hard to keep the ingredients of cigarettes out of the public domain. They didn't want people to know what were in cigarettes because then fewer people would use them. All right, the ability to enter and exit a market is also important when you're looking at levels of competition, right? We call these barriers to entry. All right, and so in a monopoly, or if you look at Georgia Power is a good example here, right? They have a monopoly on electricity. No one else can enter that market because the state of Georgia only allows one company to produce electricity. All right, same thing with that gas station on Jekyll, right? Another gas station can't just pop up because there's land laws there. They can't, They can't build on a certain amount, more than a certain amount of the island. And so there's things preventing new companies from entering these markets. Oh yeah, so these barriers to entry are what we were just referring to. So in all monopolies, there's something preventing other companies from entering the market. And so if you look at that Daraprim drug, it would be their copyright or their patent that allows them to maintain that monopoly. The government is giving them that right to have a monopoly, at least for a certain amount of time. All right. Good. All right. So with this ability, we call this price setting power or market power. All right. The more competition there is, the less control over prices a company has. Right. So if you think about gas stations, they have virtually no price setting power. If you look at Georgia Power, they could probably charge whatever they wanted for electricity if the state of Georgia would let them. And that's why the state of Georgia doesn't let them. That's why the state of Georgia puts a cap on it every year of what they can charge. So that Daraprim drug would have a ton of price setting power. They can set prices wherever they want because A, their product's in need, and B, there's no competition for it. But all right, cool. We're going to leave this off here for now. Go ahead and switch over to the Google Meet. We'll talk about this a little bit more together.